Ready?
Yep.
All right. Well, hello and welcome back to the Real Stuff podcast.
Yes, welcome on. My name is Reece.
My name is Carson.
Yes, here with Carson. And we have a very special guest on with us today, Eleace.
Hey, what's up?
Eleace, why don't you introduce yourself just a little bit, if you could, and tell us who you are.
Okay, my name is Eleace Zachary, and I am connected to Reece. You know what's funny is your name is Reece, my name's Eleace. We've worked with Louise's.
Yes.
Like, there's a lot of rhyming
There's
around here.
a lot of these.
But I know you through real estate,
Mm-hmm.
and then since the beginning of this year, I've been also focusing on helping people become their best selves through identifying what their strengths are.
Nice. Yes, Eleace has been helping us all year, us and our core team at the Sean team, going through our Clifton Strengths. And then, so today is going to be a cool episode because we had Carson take the test.
Yes.
Carson, how was the test, by the way?
It was good. I don't know. I don't know. It was fun.
It's a different test.
Yeah.
Than
I was like, I don't know. I like to overthink things, so like some of them I was like, well, I don't know, but it was good. It was good.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, and Eleace, correct me if I'm wrong, but I told him to just go with your first instinct, right?
Yes,
Mhm.
that's usually the best way to go,
Yeah.
which is hard to do when you have deliberative number one.
Yeah.
Well, let's just go right into it
Okay.
real quick. I'll let you take it away, Eleace, because I guess we'll explain what we're gonna do today. So Eleace we have coaching sessions with you,
Mm-hmm.
so we're just gonna do that with Carson today and
Cool.
talk about what
Cool.
his themes are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm so excited to. What I love about doing Clifton Strengths is that it's so unique. Whenever I sit with someone and I'm looking at their report, I know I am never going to meet anybody just like this person, like never. And so it's really fun for me to see. It's kind of like a kaleidoscope in a way where it's the same 10 colors or whatever when you're looking, but every time you adjust it, it's something new and beautiful.
Mhm.
That's the way it is for me when I meet a new person and look at their strengths. I always get way more excited than they do. like, oh, you have this. They're like, yeah, okay.
I guess so.
Yeah.
But dang, that's actually really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's
Cool.
34 of them.
Yeah, let me talk about
Yeah,
that
I'll
just
let
a little
you-
bit.
yeah.
Okay, so everyone has innate talents and strengths, meaning you are just, whether it's God-given, biological, circumstantial, we all have things that we're naturally good at.
Mm-hmm.
And this test was created to measure the intensity of talent in 34 themes. Okay, so if you were to envision each theme as sort of like its own umbrella, within that are descriptors. Like if a person has communication really high, that could include being a storyteller or being able to have good conversations. Maybe they're about writing. So it could look a little different from one person to the next,
Mm-hmm.
but it's sort of an umbrella of a concept. So they're themes. And so you took a test, and it took probably half an hour, right? 20
Somewhere around there,
20
yeah,
to 30 minutes. And it measured the intensity of talent in 34 areas and then ranked them from your greatest to your least.
Mm-hmm.
And we start with our top 5 because those are the things that we do best. And it's more beneficial to your life right now to focus on those. I will say, this is just a snapshot of who you are right now. And it's not like you're going to continue to learn and grow throughout your life. And so if you were to take this test in a few years, it might look very different, just like Cade.
Mm-hmm.
So you know Cade, right?
Yeah, of course.
So he took this test when he was 18, just starting college.
Mm-hmm.
And then he took it again a couple of months ago. It's 2 totally different reports. Like, we were both so shocked at how much he had changed since college. I mean, he went through college. He had a lot of life experiences, and you learn. We continue to develop and grow as individuals, and so this is just a snapshot, Carson, of who you are right now.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then, so when did you first take this? When was the first time you took your?
I took this a couple of years ago. No, it was probably a year and a half ago in a communications class in college.
Mm-hmm.
And I love psychology. I've always loved psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is under the umbrella of positive psychology,
Yeah.
which seeks to it seeks to build you up. So when I took this test, I was like, oh, this is something I could really get excited about, but I didn't have the time, so I set it aside. But when I finished school, I was like, okay, I want to go back and study this. And I just really immersed myself in it. And
Well, that's awesome.
yeah.
So as you've studied it over the past year and a half, have you have you taken it again, or did you only do the one time?
Actually, I took it twice.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I took it the first time, and I thought I had to have done it wrong. Because I had so many, I just didn't think, if I were to guess, I would have guessed differently. And I thought, no, it's got to be wrong. I took it again. It was pretty much the same. I mean, a couple of them were maybe instead of ranked 4th, it was ranked 6th or something like that. But it was all pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
No big surprises.
Yeah. And as you've studied them, because you've studied all of them, and not only in yourself, but your family, right, has taken it, and then obviously us at the team and anyone else that have you noticed yourself shifting at all without taking the test? Can you do that, or does that make sense?
So the concept of identifying the things you're good at is part of a bigger picture of identifying the work that will lead to fulfillment in your life. So part of it is the strengths are the things that we do best. And other things like core values or character strengths, that's the why of what we do. So I've been pouring into this big picture, and this is just a portion of it. What I've noticed, I'm starting to see little aspects of myself that I think are ready to be developed more. And that's been fascinating for me to see as
So is that the ones past your 10 kind of? Or
yeah, so it's interesting. When I was a little kid, I was very vivacious and outgoing and not afraid to talk to anybody. Very much. I have a son named Carson, and he's a lot like that. I'm like, yeah, he gets that from me. And then just kind of circumstances of life, I really dampened that. And so now I'm kind of ready to explore with that a bit more.
That's cool.
So I see achiever moving up my list. Yeah.
Okay. So can you identify, well, we've talked about this before of identifying in movie characters, and maybe we can do that again after we go over Carson's stuff, but are you getting good at identifying that in people even before they take the test?
Yes. Because it's so great to do this. We start with our own top 5, and it's the same process for all 34, but you figure out, what does this mean? How does it show up in me? And as you're doing the work of acknowledging and building awareness of these themes, you start to see it in other people. You're like, ooh, they're like me in that aspect. And I've studied all 34, and so I'll say I love that about that person. My husband, he has consistency really high, discipline really high in his top 5. I do not. It's 33 and 34 for me. And so I now have language for this thing I don't have in myself, but I can see it now. I can identify it in other people. And I'm like, oh, I love that you have that. That's so cool. So
that's
it makes you appreciate them more.
Yes.
That's really interesting.
It's kind of a roadmap to understanding other people and yourself.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, why don't we jump right into I don't know how you usually do it because I've only been through it once, I guess, but I'll let you take the reins, Eleace.
Yeah. So the first thing I like to find out is, what are your thoughts when you saw this?
It was I think for most of it, it made sense And then like there were some things that I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to be, I don't know if I want this to be in my top, but it was. I think it made sense looking at everything.
That's so interesting that you say that, because your brother literally said the same thing. When we had our first coaching session, he's like, I don't like that this is in my top 5.
Mm-hmm.
But how has that evolved?
For me?
Yeah.
Because I think it was about significance, right?
Uh-huh.
That was the one that I didn't like. And it's now like my superpower. I'm just kidding. No, but yeah, I didn't, because as I was reading it, I felt like a lot of the things that we're describing could be used negatively, and I feel like are more commonly used negatively nowadays than positively.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? So like significance is like you kind of have the, and correct me if I'm wrong, but basically like you speak with authority, and when you're speaking, like people want to listen, you make them want to listen. Is that a good way to describe it? Not sort of?
Yeah, that could be for you. Significance is an influencing theme, like you mentioned, and it's about helping people get on board with something that's meaningful to you. So you mentioned about how a strength can be used for good or evil. I think that's all of them. And if you were to imagine a tree that has roots, maybe it's a mature tree, it's in a beautiful location, it's kind of shady, right? It has its leaves. If there's roots and the trunk and the branches, what determines if the fruit of that tree is good or not? And a lot of that is the roots. And so if you were to look at strengths or talents and abilities as your branches of a tree, they can be used for good or evil, right? And our roots are our character strengths, our core values, our virtues, and that is the why we do what we do. So I mean, you could take a maybe not nice person in this world and have them take the Clifton Strengths test. They're going to rank. Maybe they're great at ideation. Maybe they're strategic. But if their values are negative, then that's going to determine the outcome.
How they use their strengths. Yeah. Could you turn that off? Thanks. But yeah, I don't know. Now I really like significance.
Yes.
It's like my favorite.
Yeah, I think it is his favorite.
Because I say it all the time. I probably use it out of context more than I use it in context. Because like Carson's teased me about how I get my way.
He gets what he wants.
I guess what he gets what I want, and I just go, well, it's my significance, dude. I don't know. I don't think I'm using it correctly, but it's funny. Anyway, yeah.
That is funny. Well, let's start with deliberative for you. Let's I'm just going to read the first part, and then so people who are especially talented in deliberative theme are best described by the serious care they take in making decisions or choices. They anticipate obstacles. So you were given this report, and in this report, it's a custom tailored description based on your other themes that you have in your top 5, which I didn't mention, but the odds of somebody having the same top 5 as you in the same order, do you know the odds of somebody else having the same as you in the same order?
I assume pretty low.
It's 1 in 33 million.
Oh, wow. That's way lower than I thought it was going to be. That's crazy.
It's your own fingerprint, and that's just your top 5. That's not taking into consideration your entire 34. There's nobody like you. In the world, in other words. So this is really rare. So this paragraph, remember I mentioned the umbrella and how it's like a theme, and there are various ways deliberative can show up. Not every sentence is going to apply to you, but you should have a fair amount that resonates. So if you could maybe pick 1 or 2 sentences in here that really felt like you. Could you read those?
Yeah, so I have a few already like underlined.
Perfect.
So there was one that it says chances are good that you are a reserved individual. You choose to keep personal matters to yourself. And that's something that I don't know if I knew I did until like probably like the last year. I've noticed that I don't share very much, I guess. I don't know. I just like to figure things out on my own, I guess. And so I've noticed that a lot. And then at the end, it said individuals might appreciate your methodical and unhurried way of processing facts or numerical data. And yeah, that sounded pretty right to me.
Do you have analytical in your top 10?
I have my top 10 here somewhere. Let me see.
I was kind of surprised that I didn't.
I do. It's 6.
It's 6. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I would have thought you had analytical
You're
pretty
good.
high, too.
Yeah. Dang. That was impressive.
She spotted a top 6 too. Dang.
So the thing about deliberative is that it's actually an executing theme. So there's 4 main categories that we sort these 34 themes into. There are executing themes, and those are talents that have like this energy to do, and it propels you to get something done. Influencing themes, where you're about people and getting others on board with your idea. Relationship building themes, and strategic thinking themes. So deliberative, you would think it's in a strategic thinking theme, right? But it's not. It's executing. And the reason why is I know a woman who has deliberative number 2, and it's so fascinating because she will just she'll stop. Like she'll just stop as she's figuring something out. And once she knows, she moves. So have you noticed if you're figuring out, once you've decided, that it propels you to action?
Yeah. I don't like to just do things. Like just like go. So yeah, I kind of like until I've really thought it through, I have trouble like going and acting and doing. But yeah, once I kind of decide like, all right, this is what I'm going to do, I can kind of dive in a lot easier.
Like you want to, huh?
Yeah.
So it's deliberative. So you are weighing the pros and cons. You're like figuring out. It usually feels like this way or this way. And then once you've done all the math and you've figured out where to go, then you go. So how does this show up in your life?
Just in like, just in decisions that I made. Like I don't like, even in trying to like see if I wanted to do real estate and just like stuff like that. Like for, I don't know, I was stressing about what I was going to do after high school since my junior year, and like Reece was like, well, you can come to the office, and I didn't want to do it until I like fully thought it through, and so even when he got me to come in for the first few weeks, I was still very like cautious, and I wanted to just make sure that I wanted to dedicate myself to it. And then like now I look forward to coming in every time I do, because
you've decided. Once that decision's made, there's no more deliberating. Like you've moved on. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So my recommendation to you is notice when you are deliberating. Notice when you're in that mode of weighing. That if you feel like a stop, if you feel a slowdown, if you feel yourself remove from a situation so you can think about it, that's your deliberative showing up. So when you notice it, you just say, oh, that's deliberative. Okay, cool. And then the goal is to build awareness of it, so that now this is your number 1. You really can't help it. Like you're just always going to do this.
Yeah.
But let's pretend it was a little lower. Let's say it was number 6 or whatever. You could intentionally call upon it. You can be like, I need to deliberate on this. I know what it feels like to be in that mode. I'm going to access that right now. And so we build awareness of how our themes show up in us so that we can intentionally use them. And by so doing, we progress. We do better in our lives. Our outcomes are better.
Well, yeah, that's really cool.
So let's turn the time over to Reece. to share his thoughts so far, because I can tell you're thinking.
Yeah. Well, I remember when we first started going over it, and it's just it's very powerful that when you have verbiage to go along with the things that you're feeling. And like, just from what you have talked about, our top 5, like you just said, number one, you can't really help but doing it. And so like, cause my number 1 is futuristic. So I do that all the time. Like when I'm not doing anything, I just future cast and like think about goals, whatever. But it's just cool to have verbiage. And so it's like interesting watching Carson to have the verbiage, because like as we're talking about, I was like, dude, this fool is so deliberative, like, and so I don't know. That's just what I've been thinking about. Is cool to see have Carson have the same
Yes,
verbiage,
absolutely.
verbiage freedom, maybe.
And now you have that. Now, when you see him in action, when you see deliberative show up in him, you'll be like, that's his superpower. So I will give you a word of warning. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, because this fool doesn't make decisions quickly, and it annoys me because I do. And so now I can be like, okay, he's going back and forth with himself, trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
He's deliberating. So now you have verbiage for it.
Yeah.
Just like now you have verbiage for Reece when he is future casting. He's just being futuristic. But I will say, the thing we need to be aware of with our superpowers is that sometimes we need to ask permission with other people. Now, I don't know exactly how that would show up with you. It might just be verbalizing what you're doing. So for me, I have strategic high, I have ideation high. So some in my brain, I'll have all these ideas like, we should do this, these are the steps we should take next because it's more efficient. We're going to cut 15 minutes off of our trip if we just go this way. But I can't just do that because it annoys people.
Yeah.
So I have to say, hey, I have an idea. Are you interested in my thoughts about this? And so what you might do is, if you are heavily deliberating on something, you might just verbalize that to the people you're with. Just say, I'm just figuring this out. I just need a couple of minutes to think about this. And that might help. Just like Reece, you might have to say, hey, I have these ideas. Would you like to hear my ideas? This is the vision that I see.
Yeah, totally.
It's funny that you have strategic and ideation high, because that's 2 and 3. I have ideation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But
Let's take a look at what strategic looks like for you. And I'm going to pull up strategic for me because they're going to look different. Oh, I don't have my phone on me.
Do you want to do strategic first or ideation?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Uh-huh. Have you read through this paragraph yet?
Yeah, I read through all my top 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to pick so none of our talents live in isolation. We just use them all the time, and so that's why strategic is influenced, tempered, or sharpened by the other themes that you have. And so I'm curious. I have deliberative number 8, 7 or 8. I think it's 8. It's the only executing theme I have in my top 10.
Really?
Yeah, and it's the one that slows down. It's really annoying to me. But so anyway, I'm curious about your strategic.
Do you want me to read the whole paragraph or just the things I have?
I want you to read the things that stand out to you.
So I had like 2 things that really this whole one kind of like resonated more, but 2 things. One sentence said, you are likely to generate multiple action plans before you choose the best one. And then my other one says, maybe you generate schemes for solving the problem. And that I've noticed I do a lot. I don't like I said earlier, I don't like to jump into things. I like to imagine every possible.
So those 2 sentences that you just shared, can you identify the other themes that are influencing your strategic? So with your first sentence, which theme influences your strategic?
Would it be deliberative?
Deliberative. And how about your second one you shared?
What was that one? Maybe you generate schemes for solving the problem. Strategic, maybe? I don't know.
I'm thinking analytical. Yeah.
Number 6, yeah.
Yeah. So that doesn't sound like me at all. My strategic has to do with solving other people's problems, because I have empathy high also. And I have empathy number 3. And so being problem solving for other people
Mm-hmm.
is high throughout my top 5.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of interesting how
Yeah.
we're both about creating a plan,
Yeah.
but yours is influenced more analytically and logically, whereas mine is more relationship
Mm-hmm.
themed.
Crazy.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually crazy how they're both so high, but they're like
Different.
Man,
Yeah.
that's insane.
Yes, and that's why we can read a general description,
Mm-hmm.
but it does take some thinking and processing and building awareness over time of what does it really look like in
Mhm.
you? What's your own brand?
Because they all work together differently.
They all work together differently.
Interesting.
So let's take a look at your ideation. So ideation is this great, it's a strategic thinking theme,
Mhm.
and it's about generating endless ideas.
Mhm.
Like it's and not only that, when we are operating in our strengths, it's energizing. Strengths is about energy. When you're utilizing your top themes, it's energizing for you. If you're not, it's draining.
Mhm.
If you're having to work or operate in your lower themes, it's just draining. And so ideation,
Mhm.
it's, yeah. So I'm curious about yours.
Well, ideation was actually okay. So first, I'll read the thing that stuck out was I think it's like 2 sentences. It says perhaps you think a bit better and accomplish a bit more when your ability to respond to situations on a moment's notice is acknowledged, used, and appreciated. Because of your strengths, you might be proficient. That is, have a high degree of ability at devising different ways to do certain tasks. So that kind of stuck out. To me a
Okay,
little bit.
so that sounds like in that sentence, your strategic was being influenced by ideation. So
Mhm.
you come up with different ways of doing things.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Mhm.
so ideation adds a lot of color. Ironically, you guys are both colorblind, but
Eleace knows because she is a colorblind.
Mike Carson's colorblind
Yeah.
too.
What?
Yeah, same red green colorblind.
Yep.
Man, that's crazy.
I know. We need like a picture. Or
Twins.
Mhm.
Yeah. We need to take a picture of you guys both not matching. No.
I ask mom now.
Yeah, I
ask
know.
Mom.
We've
I
learned.
usually match.
Mike Carson just doesn't care.
Yeah.
Good for him.
I was like that.
Good for him. Yeah, you were.
I was like that. I would
Yeah.
have like red, bright shorts with like I don't even know.
Yeah.
Okay, I love this last sentence for your ideation. Perhaps you provide the creative intelligence for original undertakings of a personal or professional nature. Creative intelligence for original undertakings. So that's very fascinating. I've never seen that sentence before. Have you? Have you guys ever heard that sentence? I've never heard that
Creative
sentence.
intelligence. I
Creative
like the way it sounds
intelligence
together,
for, so you could like, this could be an affirmation for you. This could be an identity for you. You can say, I'm Carson and I provide the creative intelligence for original undertakings. So it's like, yeah, I'm
Like my
creative.
Yeah.
That's your mantra.
Mantra.
One thing I saw too that it kind of was like interesting to me in ideation because like here I'll just read it first. It says mind-numbing routines, processes, paperwork, or production lines sometimes bore you. And the crazy thing about that is like get like stuff like that, like routines, they do bore me, but I also think so much that I'm not very good with change. So
Yes.
like I'm like if things stay the same, I get bored, but if things change too much, I like
Yeah.
it's
This is a really
Yeah.
great example of when our top themes wrestle.
mm-hmm.
When we feel when they're at odds with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So in your case, you've got deliberative, which is like, hold on, let me think it through. I want to make sure I know what the best way to do things. And you have strategic that looks for the best path. You have analytical high. And then at the same time, you have ideation that's like, no, let me be a free spirit. And I like spontaneity and things like that. So how you can tell when your strengths are at odds with each other is it feels restless.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever have moments where you're feeling like just like this, when you're feeling at odds, usually that is when you have themes that are competing against each other. And that's why it's also good if you're feeling restless, identifying what is it that which themes are showing up to create that.
So these really help you just understand what you're kind of feeling all the time.
Absolutely. They help you understand yourself, and that way you have a better path forward.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah,
so cool.
Not that because like when I first kind of read through them, I was reading them with Reece, and not that he didn't do a good job of like.
I just wanted to hear them. I don't have a good explanation.
Yeah, it's really cool to have you here to
yeah,
help
for
explain
sure.
and
Thank
break
you.
everything down. Yeah.
I love doing this.
Yeah.
This is something that I love to do, and what I love is that this is endless. You can continue to develop your talents and strengths endlessly. Whereas when you got your full 34 report, right?
He did the leadership one.
You did the
10,
leadership.
The 10.
Okay. So if you were to see your full 34 report, this happens almost every time people, first thing they do, they look at their bottom ones. They're like, oh, what am I weak in, you know? And then inevitably they're like, oh, I really wish I had that higher.
Yeah.
What can I do to make that better? And then I say, no, you don't have to. This right here, this report is giving you permission to not worry about it, because statistically so the company that made this Gallup, they've been around for about 100 years. They're an information gathering company. They're all about analytics. You would probably be a great employee for Gallup. And they found statistically that you have more return on pouring into your top themes versus pouring into your bottom themes. So it's permission to not worry about it. Use your energy better by identifying your top themes and pouring into them. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just
I thought you were going to say something.
Well, I did have a thought too, but I was just going to say, like, even if we look at this biblically too, that's so like God to do that too, because rather than use people for their weaknesses, he uses them for what, he uses what they're getting. No matter what their weaknesses are, he's still going to use you. So that's just the relation I made to it. But anyway.
And that concept that you just talked about, Reece, is called strengths partnerships. So if you're working with somebody, like for example, my spouse, he has analytical, he's got consistency, he has discipline really high. I can partner with him and rely on him because he's so good at those things. I know I can rely on him for that. He's always going to be organized. He's always going to be consistent. So that brings me a lot of peace. When we partner with the Lord, who is 100% at all these things, that is why we're successful. We don't need to be better to be successful with him. Like that's where mercy comes in. That's where faith comes in. I have faith that if I partner with the Lord, I'm going to be successful in this thing. I mean, I feel like that's why the Lord chooses the weak things of the earth, because they do partner with him better, right? Moses, he had to partner with the Lord to speak. And there's just David and Goliath. Like when we partner with the Lord, I love to see the miracles that happen. So, and so we can do that with each other too.
Yeah. That's really cool. I wonder how we could use our strengths together, Carson.
I don't know. I get really annoyed by your significance.
I don't use it correctly, so maybe you don't. I don't know. I just throw it out there sometimes.
Reece, remind me what your top 5 are.
So it's futuristic, woo, communication, significance, and is it consistency is my 5?
Yeah, consistency. Number 5, I remember that.
Number
okay,
5.
So woo, can you define what woo is?
Yeah, so woo is it winning others over or winning over others?
I think it's one of those glass half full, glass half empty things.
Yeah, true. And remind me again of what is it relationship or
woo is an influencing
theme. So that's right. I have 3 influencing themes right smack in the middle of my 5.
That makes sense.
So I have my woo, communication, and significance are all influencing themes. Yeah. So how do I
why you always pick lunch? You can always just.
I guess.
I think
don't
part
know.
of it is
It's meaningful to me, so I
If
can
you're-
influence other people.
if you're
to do
deliberative, you're thinking a lot more about
Yeah.
lunch.
that. Then
He's
talk.
not
really
thinking
is.
about
I
it.
just talk.
He just.
He just goes.
He just says what he wants, and then we go. I don't get it.
Well,
It does happen a lot. I don't know what it is, but
you could if you wanted, and that might be part of it. It's like, do you want to or not? You could say, can we think about this a little bit more?
That's good.
dang,
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write
Yeah.
that down.
That could be your phrase for a lot of things. Can we think about this a
Mhm.
little bit more?
Dang, that's good.
Hmm.
That's really
Yeah.
because I like to think. I'm good at it.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, you do.
Okay,
You nerd.
Too much.
You nerd.
so I'm a thinker also,
Mm-hmm.
and I have found, I don't know if it's deliberative for me or just I have intellection number 5, and so I like to
Mhm.
think deeply about things.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have intellection in your top 10?
No.
So sometimes I do halt. Sometimes I do take a little bit more time to think. So sometimes first impressions aren't great for me.
Mm-hmm.
For like the other person misreads me all the time because I don't react. Like I don't have the visual cues for them to, like a person who has woo very high. Oh, there other people are super comfortable with them
Mhm.
and they make friends really fast. I don't have that. And so I rely on other people who do. My daughter Abby has woo in her top 5. I know if I'm with her, she's going to lead the way and I don't have to worry about it being, uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Mm.
So if you're with your brother, you can, instead of it feeling like, maybe I'll set that thought aside for a second. I do have a brother thought. Maybe I'll just say it. Brothers are competitive.
That's true.
And it's not so much you have to win as sometimes I think 50% of it is who am I in relation to this person?
Mm-hmm.
My brother is this. What does that mean I am? And I feel like there's this definition of identity that happens with brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And so choose to look at what your brother has in his top 5, top 10, his strengths as being a resource for you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I can lean on him in this regard. And in that way, you have unity instead of subtle hints of discord. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that you guys have that because you guys are really great brothers.
Mhm.
I'm just saying relationships in general, like
Yeah.
siblings in general,
Mhm.
people in general.
You know what's funny? So Carson is a thinker.
Mm-hmm.
So what you were saying, I'm going to backtrack a little bit to when you were talking about how you don't give as many cues.
Mm-hmm.
Would that apply to Carson?
Yes, that's why I was saying that.
So
Yeah.
I totally, okay, you know what's funny is right before we were starting this, Zach was asking me how long it was going to be. And I was like, I was speaking, but I was also looking at both of you to see how you were going to react, and neither of you gave any reaction.
No,
And
no,
it
because
annoyed
why?
me.
We're thinking about it.
Okay,
We're figuring out.
yeah.
We're weighing it out. It's a strategic of, well, let's see. If we go 45 minutes, it could be that, but we could go a little bit long. Like
Yeah.
we're like
Yeah.
thinking it through.
Yes. So the funny thing about that is, I can literally off the top of my head recall times for both of you that I've spoken and like I want you guys to react, but you don't. But then when I specifically ask, like if we're like in a group setting maybe, and maybe this is more towards Carson because I'm around you every day,
Yeah.
but like, and you don't give a reaction. But when I ask you specifically, I appreciate what you say more than what everyone else expresses. And same with you, Eleace. Like when both of you talk, it's very thought through, and I'm like, that sounds really good. Like if that makes sense. But like I can think about that off the top of my head for both of you in times that I've like, you're not reacting maybe, but then when you talk, it's very meaningful.
Oh,
Because
thank
you have thought it through.
Well, I'm glad you noticed
anyway.
that. Like, because I need time to process.
Yeah.
I need more time to process than usually the other person wants.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So thank you.
Yeah.
For,
Well, and I'm
I'm
learning
really
too.
sorry.
No, don't apologize. It's fine.
Sorry
No.
for those times when I looked at you awkwardly
No.
while I was thinking.
No, that's
Reece
not.
actually brought this up to make you feel better.
Yeah, at least we're
Um,
gonna have
and
to have
me
an
too, actually, 'cause
intervention.
I was
Check
right
just
there.
the
kidding.
box. So I'm
So-
just kidding.
Handled.
Handled. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I
that's
was just
funny.
thinking now that you have awareness and I have awareness of myself too. I have to come up with strategies. And sometimes I'm intentionally telling myself, I'm setting this aside for a second. My tendency to just think, and I'm just going to talk. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So like intentional, I have empathy really high, so I'm listening. Relator, I have relator in my top 10, and so like I can pour energy, and you do too. Yeah,
It's 4, yeah.
oh my gosh, are you sure we're not related? So you can strategically go into a circumstance, a situation where you can intentionally use the theme that you know you have if you need to. But when you're in a partnership and you're somewhere, you can just let him do all the talking.
Yeah.
That's why I liked, like, whenever I meet new people, I like, if I'm on my own, I'm kind of lost. But if Reece is there to introduce me, I know, like, he'll talk for a little
Yeah.
bit.
I wonder
and
what
then I can
dad's
just be like,
strengths
"Hey."
are.
Huh?
I'd be interested to hear what dad's are.
Yeah.
Because him and I are pretty alike.
Your dad has some relationship building themes for
100%.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
He
good.
probably has woo high.
I think so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, let's talk about that problem solving, where having a strategy, if you're meeting new people and the tendency, we're wired to think a little bit more, to process. I think some of it is just processing. So just having a plan going into it, say, I'm going to give myself permission to later think through it. Does that make sense? I have to do things like that too. Because I have 4 out of my top 5 out of my top 6 themes are all strategic thinking. So I tend to go very inward.
Yeah.
In fact, I never get bored at my house. Like, I'm never bored. I have to think about being social.
Well, I've always done it, but I've noticed recently, if I'm ever like by myself in my house, I'll never just be sitting around. Like, I'll be like, I will straight up pace around my living room and just thinking about like
You do that.
just anything,
Yep.
random stuff. But yeah,
Strategic thinking.
I guess. So.
Yeah. You're a pacer.
Yeah.
You're a processor.
Do you pace? Like on the phone maybe, or?
I have a hard time. If I'm on the phone, I don't multitask very well.
I've always paced.
I have to like focus. I'm not a pacer.
Yeah. I don't know why I do it.
I do too.
Every time I get on a phone call, especially on the phone,
Yeah.
for the longest time, like I've just recently, well, I wouldn't say just recently, but like the last few years, I've started just doing it just whenever. I like, for some reason, I sometimes if I'm doing my Bible study, I'll pace with my, either if I'm doing it on my, like sometimes I'll do it on the Bible app on my phone, and sometimes I'll have like, if I'm doing it with my Bible, it's a little bit harder, but if I'm doing it on my phone, I like to pace because then I can think through everything.
So that could be a cue to you that you are doing your deep thinking, you're processing. If you're fidgety, if you're wanting to move, it could be an energy thing. I'm listening to the book. Have you read the book Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow?
No.
And it talks about that too. Like if we're really thinking things through, our heart rate goes up like 7 or 8 beats per minute. So it could be something like that too. It could be an energy thing.
Yeah.
Working hard, what we're thinking.
Interesting.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, did you have anything else you wanted to go over with Carson? Do you have more that you wanted to?
No, I'm just following your lead.
Okay. I was gonna say we should do that game because I like it. I don't know if you were
Alright.
there for it, but okay. So what we did was it was on the Not So Real Estate podcast. But what we did was we were talking about our strengths, and so we thought of characters from movies, and Eleace like gave us a breakdown of like what she thinks their top 5 or whatever might be, and it was really interesting. So I think we should do it again.
All right. Do you have some people?
Yeah, I have to think. Thanos was the one I did last time, right? It was it was very interesting.
Do you watch a lot of movies? I don't know. So I have to, if I'm gonna think of a movie character, what kind of movies do you
I watch a lot of Marvel movies, so
Love
that's
that.
always
Yeah.
safe.
I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's easy.
Okay.
Star Wars, Marvel. I'm like a teenage boy when
Let's
it comes
go
to
with
movies.
let's go with Master Yoda.
Oh, dude, I was gonna say Darth Vader.
Yoda. Oh my gosh. Yoda's so cute. Let me think about this. Yoda is a thinker. I think he has intellection high. He's a teacher. I think he has input high. We haven't talked about input here today, but input is the talent to collect and archive or curate information so that you can recall it at the right time. And he's such a great teacher that I think he's got like this little master list of wise words to say, right? So input would be the one to do that.
Okay.
So is that there's a character from a TV show where he said like what he said, he was like, I pretend to have like ideas in the moment, but really they're just great ideas that I've had for months. Is that like that kind of?
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That would be input really high.
Interesting.
They have a good grip on language too. They tend to know the right words to say. I know that Yoda has some relationship building themes. I think he has relator high. I think relator would be the one, because relator is the theme that's selective about who they connect with, and so, which we talked about Thanos having that. I think because Yoda's about depth of connection, and so I think he would have relator high.
We didn't talk about relator because that was my number 4 is relator.
Yes,
Because that's something that I do as well.
I think
I would prefer to have just a few close friends over a lot of. Yeah.
So in a sense, woo and relator are opposite in some ways, where woo is really great at that initial helping people feel welcome and that initial connection, and relator is more like, I'm gonna hang back. If they were at a party, they would just pick like one person, one or two people, and sort of like stick with them the whole time.
That's what I do. I'm not good at
Not a
bouncing
butterfly.
around
You're
people.
loyal. That's my specialty at parties.
And both are
Is
needed.
bouncing around. Yeah.
Both are needed,
I'm
right?
real good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not good at it. That's why I wasn't good at I've never been good
Your
at big birthday parties or my
grad
grad
party.
party.
Yeah.
That was the worst because my mom was like, go around and talk to everyone, and I was.
You're like, nope.
I
like,
thrived. I thrived at my
I
grad
wanted
party.
everyone to come to me.
Yeah.
If that was gonna happen, I'm like, hey, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The art is mastering when the conversation's over and how to politely end the conversation. My go-to is I'm gonna go say hi to grandma, and then I do,
That's good.
and then I go say
I
hi
need
to
to
grandma.
remember that because I
do that at
never
church.
know how to.
I
end a
do that at
conversation.
church all the time. I'm really good at it. Anyway, shout out grandma.
Shout out, grandma.
Yeah.
So Yoda's a good one. I'm gonna think about this one because I feel like I think he's got some sleeper strengths in there that maybe you wouldn't think about. I think he has significance. I think he has it in his top 10 because he's about getting people on board with an idea.
Yeah.
Also, which
Crazy.
yeah. So any other characters?
I'll let you go if you want to pick one.
Well, I was just gonna say like an Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader. I don't know if we want to stick with Star Wars, but that was what I was.
Sure, let's
Hey,
stick with Star Wars.
that's a great example
That's what I
of
thought.
metamorphosis of talents as well. I gotta say he's got competition pretty high.
Oh yeah, that was my 5 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So remember we talked about at the beginning, understanding your values and how your values influence the outcome of your strengths and action. So he has competition high, and competition is where they're about winning. Whereas achiever is about winning, but they don't have to necessarily beat somebody else. I think Anakin Skywalker, he's complex because he has attachment issues. I think he has attachment injury, and that influences
Would you
things.
say he has consistency really low?
Yes,
Yeah.
I would say he has consistency really, really low. Perhaps he has strategic high. I don't know if he has strategic high because he seems really
He seems kind of rash.
rash. Yeah, he seems like
Yeah.
impulsive.
Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Yeah, so maybe not strategic. Yeah, I don't think that's the right one. He's executing themes for sure. So competition, he might have achiever high too. That's an influencing theme.
He's not particularly good at relationship building.
I don't think he's got relationship building themes very high at all.
Mm-hmm.
He seems to use relationships strategically.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if he does have strategic, I think it's in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know why he's hard to read? Is because he's not truly himself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's really in a place of pain.
Yeah.
And when
Yeah.
we are in a place of pain, this is kind of interesting, but I worked with somebody earlier this week who, she has responsibility like number one. And in the course of talking with her, I was like, I don't know your past. I don't know. And I'm not asking you to tell me anything, but I can tell that responsibility is a coping mechanism. That's not really you.
Yeah.
That you're still in trauma mode, and you've developed responsibility high as a way of coping. And she started to cry. She's like, I think you're right. And so I think with Anakin Skywalker, he would actually be a different person if he were not a slave, if he had had stability at home, if he had not been taken, think about all of the things that contribute to his trauma. So I think it's hard to read exactly what his talents are.
Do you think it would be a more accurate depiction of him? We're talking about this all deep.
You know what the crazy thing? I was about to say, I love that we're talking about, this is,
Do you think that it would be more accurate if we, applied it, what his strengths are, in the Phantom Menace when he's a kid? That would be more accurate to his true self?
Yeah, but again, it's the most accurate.
The most accurate of what we
So
have.
let's look at what he does. He's building things. He's got that engineering
ships.
mind.
Yeah.
So he's really intelligent, and he likes to do. And so I wonder if he's got discipline, where he does his work and he's very focused. Maybe he has focus high. Oh, he must have focus high, because that's also an executing theme.
Yeah.
There was one of mine that talked about invention. I can't remember what it was.
Ideation.
Was it ideation?
Yeah. He could have ideation high, but again, I feel like he was hamstringed a bit because of his circumstances. If he had not been in those circumstances, he might have been different. But yeah.
Very interesting. Anakin Skywalker, what a complex guy.
Totally.
Honestly.
He really is, because he plays almost 3 different characters.
Yeah.
Because he's got the kid him, then when he's in... Well, I would honestly say,
is more of a different person.
I would honestly say, the kid's different, then the second movie's different, then Revenge of the Sith is, has 2 different in his thing, and then, obviously, the primary series.
Remember we talked about how we can feel at odds within ourselves. I think the second movie is where he's completely at odds within himself, both morally and strengths wise as well. He can't be creative in the way that he wants to be I think he has creativity pretty high. And he's messed up because of his relationships. I loved the Obi-Wan series because of what it revealed
about Anakin.
I just loved that as well, where you've real closure, no, I chose this is the path that I chose. It's pretty fascinating. Super complex character.
That show was good. Obi-Wan was, I think if I watched it back to back, it would be, because the first time I thought it was a little bit slow the first time. I know this is kind of off topic, but just because of the weekly, but I really loved a lot of it. So I think
it answered questions that I didn't know I had.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, why in the world would Leia say, help us, Obi-Wan, you're our only hope, you're my only hope? Why would he be her only hope? So it's oh, they have relationship, that's why there's history.
That might be the first time I've thought about that.
Yeah, I
just now,
didn't even think about that.
Made a lot of sense to me, at least.
Yeah. So go back and watch it. It'll answer all kinds of questions.
I really want to go through and watch everything in order. I would love to do that. I think I'm going to. This podcast made me.
Do it.
I'm going to.
Do it. Yeah. Should we do one more? Let's do one more.
Let's do one more.
Okay.
We need a conference about this because I want it to be a good one.
Okay, what do you want it to be?
I don't know. Yeah, Just do it. Yeah.
Okay. Tony Stark.
Tony Stark. Oh my gosh.
Iron Man.
So he is this. So here's the thing about the Clifton Strengths test. It measures the intensity of talent in all 34 areas. I think if I were to look at his rankings, he would have a few that were just exceedingly high and others like barely didn't register at all. I think he's got ideation super high, and I think he has intellection really high. He's is so smart. It works so quickly. I know this sounds crazy, but I think his behavior of, you're talking about how you pace when you think.
Yeah.
I think that his significance that he has high and his woo that he has high is a coping strategy for how much is going on within him when he's thinking so much. Like, think about how he moves so quickly and when he's thinking.
Well, I think about Iron Man 3.
I was just going to say Iron Man 3, yep.
He built, like 40
40-something suits.
And
well, because, that's his whole deal and that he's dealing with in Iron Man 3 is like he has so much trauma and stuff going on inside his head that he just builds all of his suits. Yeah. Right? Because we're at 8 in Avengers and then 42 in Iron Man 3. Yeah, so
34 suits.
So I think he's got achiever really, really high also. But I think it's unique to him because achievement to him looks like outcome, but it also looks like problem solving.
Yes.
Even if he's come to a solution and he doesn't necessarily create it, he's created the solution. He knows theoretically.
Civil War. I think of Civil War for that because he has this fix that he's not really come up with and he's not solely convinced, but since he's come to the solution that now he's all in on this fix to the problems.
So I think he has ideation super high, creativity high, achiever high, I know what it is. I was like, what is the thing I'm missing? He has command.
Yeah.
Really
Command.
high,
Yeah.
where he has self-assurance really high. So he does not need affirmation from anybody else. And command is they own the room when they walk in. They own it.
I wish I had command.
Command can manifest either extrovertedly or introvertedly.
I have command as my 9. I know I had it somewhere. I don't think I command a room, but I think I can take like what I've noticed is like if, and I don't mean for this to sound like bad, or like if I notice that things aren't getting done or like things aren't getting done as well as they could be, that's when I'm kind of capable of like taking over and like I don't know if that's kind of what I got from because I read something on it. I can't remember. I don't know exactly how to put it.
Yeah, it does make sense. So Caleb, who is the videographer for the Sean team, he has command in his top 5.
It's number 1, isn't it?
I think it's number 2.
Oh.
I think he has ideation number 1.
Oh, okay.
Command number 2. And same kind of thing, like where he can just, he's got it.
Yeah.
But I think Tony Stark has self-assurance really high, which is I don't need anybody to approve of this.
Yeah.
I have all of the answers within myself.
Yeah. And he will do it all himself too if he needs to.
Yeah, and he does.
I think
when does he collaborate with people? He doesn't play well with others, doesn't he say that?
No, he doesn't, yeah.
So
well, and it generally works out for him until Infinity War when he has to kind of come face to face with that he's like trying to get Doctor Strange to just sit down in the beginning of the movie, and then at the end they end up losing.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
Dang it.
Sorry.
I mean, the movie's
You're like 5 years old.
Now,
That's
so
wild. 5 years ago that movie came out.
Pretty
and
crazy.
That's crazy.
That was my 8th grade year.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's wild.
Ridiculously stupid.
I know.
Which is my RS for the day because I forgot about it. Ridiculously stupid.
Yeah. All right. Well, Eleace, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely.
Loved it.
It's been super fun. A couple quick things too. Follow me on Instagram at Reesapien, and then also exciting is that Reece Weekly is back. So you can go to my link tree on my Instagram, and then there's a thing that says sign up for Reece Weekly, and then you can just put your email in there, sign up, and then we do emails every Friday. So it came out today. Well, we're recording on Friday, but it'll come out in 2 days from when this comes out. So you have time to sign up. So
And if anybody wants to find out more about their own strengths or find out how they operate or what they're good at, I'd be happy to help also.
Yes. How do you have?
They can reach out to you.
They can reach out to me, and then I'll get you in touch with Eleace.
Yeah.
So send me a message. Carson, do you have anything you'd like to say?
You can follow me on Instagram. What was mine?
Carson
underscore Sapien.
Yeah.
I'd love to get just Carson Sapien. That'd be great.
We'll work on it.
I have to message whoever has it and bribe them.
Yeah, true.
Except I don't have money, so Reece will bribe them.
Oh, gosh. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Eleace.
We'll see ya.
All right, bye.